57 before Christ, northern Gaul. A Roman ally is trapped behind its walls. The town is called Bibrax. Inside, the defenders are exhausted. Outside, the Belgae are pressing closer. They do not need to destroy the entire wall. They only need one weak point, one gate, one moment of panic. Stones fly over the ramparts. Torches burn in the darkness. The defenders struggle to keep men on the walls, and then somewhere in the night, a message leaves the town. It is carried through danger, through darkness, toward the camp of Julius Caesar. The message is simple: if help does not come soon, Bibrax will fall. But when Caesar responds, he does something that many people today would not expect from Rome. He does not send only heavy infantry. He does not send only legionaries with shields, pila, and swords. He sends Numidian archers. He sends Cretan archers. And he sends Balearic slingers. In that moment, one of the most common myths about the Roman army begins to collapse. The myth says Rome refused to use archers. The myth says the Roman war machine was built only on shields, swords, and close combat. The myth says the bow had no place in the army that conquered the Mediterranean. But the sources tell a different story. Rome did use archers. It used them in the Republic. It used them under Caesar. It used them in the Empire. It sent them to distant frontiers. It organized them into units. It depended on them when distance, pressure, and speed mattered. So the real question is not, did Rome use archers? The real question is much more interesting. If Rome used archers, why did the most famous Roman soldier in history, the legionary, almost never become one? When most people imagine the Roman army, they see one image: a wall of shields, iron helmets, red standards, heavy infantry marching in perfect order, a soldier holding the scutum, the great Roman shield, a pilum in his hand, a short sword at his side, discipline in his steps. Rome is remembered as an army that moved forward, an army that closed the distance, an army that did not wait behind a cloud of arrows, but advanced behind shields and forced the enemy to face steel. And that image is not wrong. The Roman legionary truly was one of the most disciplined soldiers of the ancient world. He could march for miles, carry heavy equipment, build a fortified camp at the end of the day, stand in formation under pressure, throw his pilum at exactly the right moment, then move into close combat with sword and shield. That was the face of Rome. That was the symbol. But symbols can be dangerous, because sometimes a symbol becomes so powerful that it hides everything standing behind it. And behind the Roman shield wall, there were other soldiers, men with slings, men on horses, men carrying javelins, men who scouted roads and rivers, men who guarded the flanks, and yes, men with bows. The myth that Rome refused archers did not appear from nowhere. It survives because the Roman legionary is easy to remember. He looks unmistakable. His shield has a shape people recognize. His helmet has a silhouette that appears in films, in games, in paintings, in documentaries, and in school books. The legionary is Rome in human form. But the Roman army was never just one kind of man. It was not a simple army. It was a system, and that system changed across centuries. The army of the early Republic was not exactly the same as the army of Caesar. The army of Augustus was not exactly the same as the army on Hadrian's wall. The late Roman army of Vegetius was not the same as the army that fought Hannibal. Rome lasted too long to be reduced to one image, and yet, that is exactly what happens. People look at the legionary and assume they are seeing the whole army. They see the sword, and assume Rome rejected the bow. They see the shield and assume Rome had no need for archers. They see the center of the line and forget the edges of the battlefield. But battles are not fought only in the center. They are fought on the flanks, at river crossings, before sieges, during retreats, inside ambushes, across open ground, behind the front line, and in those places, Rome needed more than a sword. The legion is not the same as the army. This is the key distinction. The typical Roman legionary was not primarily an archer, but the Roman army used archers. Those are not the same statement. A legion was built around heavy infantry. Its strength was order. Its power came from discipline, formation, endurance, and the ability to fight at close range. The legionary did not need to be the best archer in the world. He needed to be reliable in the line. He needed to hold position when fear moved through the ranks. He needed to throw the pilum with force. He needed to keep his shield where it belonged. He needed to advance when ordered. He needed to stop when ordered. He needed to kill the chaos inside himself before he could defeat the enemy in front of him. That was a full-time job. But the Roman army was bigger than the legion. Around the legion stood other troops, allies, auxiliaries, mercenaries, provincials, specialists. Some were used because they knew the terrain better. Some because they had better horses. Some because they could fight in loose order. Some because they came from cultures where the bow was not a secondary weapon, but a lifelong skill. Rome understood something brutal and practical. You do not need every soldier to do everything. You need the right soldier in the right place. Pause. Rome's real genius was not that it ignored foreign weapons. Rome's real genius was that it absorbed them. Rome conquered peoples. Rome made alliances. Rome recruited from provinces. Rome hired specialists. Rome adapted what worked. This was one of the great secrets of Roman expansion. The Romans did not always need to invent a weapon to use it. They did not need every skill to come from Italy. They could take the military traditions of Crete, Numidia, Syria, Thrace, the Balearic Islands, Gaul, Spain, and the eastern provinces, and place those traditions inside a Roman structure. That is what made the army dangerous, not purity, combination. The legion could be the iron core, but around that core, Rome added speed, distance, scouting, cavalry, engineering, siegecraft, and missile troops. A Roman commander did not have to choose between discipline and archery. He could have both. The legionary could hold the line. The archer could shape the fight before the line was reached. The slinger could harass from distance. The cavalry could threaten the flanks. The engineer could build the road, the bridge, the camp, the tower, the ramp, and the wall. Rome was not a single weapon. Rome was a machine. And the bow was one of its parts. Pause. To understand why the myth fails, we need to return to Caesar. Not because Caesar represents every Roman army in every century, but because his writings give us a clear example from the Roman Republic. During his campaign in Gaul, Caesar faced the Belgae, a powerful confederation of tribes in northern Gaul. The Remi, one of the local peoples, had aligned themselves with Rome. That made them useful. It also made them a target. When the Belgae attacked Bibrax, Caesar did not treat the crisis as a problem for legionaries alone. He used specialists. In the middle of the night, he sent Numidian and Cretan archers, along with Balearic slingers, to reinforce the town. Their arrival changed the mood inside Bibrax. The defenders were no longer just waiting to collapse. They had hope. They had support. They had missiles to answer missiles. And the attackers, who expected the town to weaken, now faced a defense that had become harder to break. Pause. This is not a small detail. It shows Roman commanders understood exactly what archers and slingers could do. They could reinforce a weak point. They could give defenders confidence. They could make an assault more costly. They could disrupt an enemy's expectation. They could buy time. And in war, time can be everything. Caesar's use of archers did not end at Balearic. Soon after, the Belgae tried to exploit the River Ain. They wanted to cross, threaten Roman supply lines, and attack a Roman position near the bridge. This was exactly the kind of situation where heavy infantry was not always the first answer. A river crossing is unstable. Men are packed together. Movement is difficult. Order breaks quickly. A force trying to cross water is vulnerable because it cannot move freely and fight properly at the same time. So Caesar responded with speed. He led cavalry, light-armed Numidians, slingers, and archers across the bridge. This was not a heavy shield wall solution. It was a missile and mobility solution. The enemy was caught in a difficult position. Some were trying to cross. Some were still in the water. Some were exposed. And Caesar used troops that could strike quickly, pressure the crossing, and break the momentum before the situation became more dangerous. Again, this is not Rome refusing archers. This is Rome using them exactly where they made sense, not as the center of Roman identity, but as tools inside a tactical system. So if Rome used archers, why did the legionary not become famous as one? Because military systems are built on trade-offs. A soldier has limited time, limited strength, limited equipment, limited space in formation, and a commander has to decide what that soldier is for. The Roman legionary was already trained for a demanding role. He had to march in order, run when needed, build camps, dig trenches, carry supplies, use the shield, throw the pilum, fight with the sword, keep formation, respond to signals, stand under pressure, and do all of this as part of a group, not as an individual hero. That role took discipline, it took repetition, it took a body trained for weight, endurance, and close combat. The archer's role was different. A skilled archer needed distance judgment, muscle memory, bow strength, timing, a calm eye, years of practice, the ability to shoot with rhythm and control, and in many cases, especially with composite or recurved bows, knowledge of equipment that was not simple to produce, maintain, or use well. You could hand a bow to a legionary. That did not make him a good archer. Rome knew the difference between a man holding a weapon and a specialist trained to use it. This is why the Roman answer was practical. Do not turn every legionary into an average archer. Recruit skilled archers. Use them where they belong. Let the legionary do what he does best. Some regions of the ancient world had stronger traditions in missile warfare than Rome itself. Cretans were famous for archery. Balearic islanders were famous for slinging. Numidians were known for light troops and fast movement. Syrians and other Eastern peoples became strongly associated with archery in the imperial army. Rome did not need to erase those identities. It could use them. That is what empires do. They move people. They move weapons. They move skills. They move traditions from one frontier to another. A man born far from Rome could still fight for Rome. A Syrian archer could serve in Britain. A Cretan archer could appear in a campaign in Gaul. A Balearic slinger could fight in a war decided hundreds of miles from his home. And to the Roman command structure, this was not a contradiction. It was an advantage. The empire was not just territory. It was a reservoir of human skill, and the army drew from that reservoir. There is another reason the myth survives. People confuse Roman preference with Roman refusal. Rome preferred the legionary as its central image. Rome preferred heavy infantry as the core of many armies. Rome preferred discipline, formation, and close combat as the heart of its military identity. But preference is not refusal. Rome did not hate distance weapons. The pilum itself was a distance weapon, a short-range one, yes, but still a missile. Roman artillery was also distance warfare, ballistae, scorpions, catapults, siege engines. The Romans were perfectly willing to strike enemies before hand-to-hand combat began. They simply organized different kinds of distance weapons into different roles. The legionary's missile was the pilum. The archer's missile was the arrow. The slinger's missile was the stone or lead shot. The artillery crew used machines. Each had a place. Each had a range. Each created a different kind of pressure. Rome did not reject missiles. Rome arranged them. Roman archers could do many things a legionary could not do as easily. They could weaken an enemy before contact. They could force opponents to lift shields. They could disrupt formations. They could make a charge lose rhythm. They could protect the flanks. They could support cavalry. They could defend walls. They could cover bridges. They could strike from behind infantry lines. They could harass troops who were trying to advance, retreat, or cross difficult ground. In a siege, archers could make walls dangerous. In a river crossing, they could punish disorder. In open terrain, they could force the enemy to react. And sometimes the value of an archer was not in destroying an army. It was in making that army move badly. An enemy under missile pressure may raise shields too early, slow down, lose spacing, break formation, rush forward before the commander wants them to, or hesitate when the battle requires speed. That is battlefield control. The archer does not need to be the symbol of Rome to matter. He only needs to change the enemy's choices. But Rome's relationship with archery was not only about Roman use, it was also about Roman fear, because some of Rome's most dangerous enemies were masters of missile warfare, and no example is more haunting than Carrhae, 53 before Christ. Crassus, one of the richest and most ambitious men in Rome, marched east against Parthia. He wanted glory. He wanted victory. He wanted a triumph that could rival Caesar and Pompey. But on the open plains near Carrhae, Roman heavy infantry faced a different kind of war. Not a line waiting to be crushed. Not a city waiting to be besieged. Not infantry ready to meet Rome, shield against shield. The Parthians fought with horse archers and armored cavalry. They controlled distance. They surrounded. They withdrew. They returned. They attacked without giving the Romans the close battle they wanted. For a legionary, this was a nightmare. His strength was closing the gap. But the enemy refused the gap. His pilum had limited range, but the enemy stayed beyond it. His sword was deadly up close, but the enemy would not come close until the moment was right. Carrhae was not proof that Rome never used archers. It proved the opposite lesson. Missile warfare mattered. Mobility mattered. Specialists mattered. Heavy infantry without the right support could be trapped by an enemy that understood distance better. Carrhae was a Roman disaster. But it was also a warning. The world Rome wanted to conquer was not made only of enemies willing to fight like Romans. As the Republic became empire, Rome's military system became even more complex. The empire stretched across deserts, mountains, forests, rivers, coasts, and cold northern frontiers. No single type of soldier could master all of it, so Rome leaned harder into specialization. Auxiliary units became a major part of imperial defense. They were often recruited from non-citizen provincials. They could provide cavalry, light infantry, archers, slingers, and other skills the legions needed. And among these troops were the Sagittarii, archers. The word comes from sagitta, arrow. These units were not imaginary. They were not exceptions so rare they can be dismissed. They were part of the Roman military world. Some fought on foot. Some fought mounted. Some came from eastern provinces. Some served far from home. And their existence tells us something very important. Rome did not only use archers in emergencies. Rome organized archery into the imperial army. That is a completely different picture from the myth. The myth says Rome refused the bow. The evidence shows Rome gave the bow a job. Now move far from the heat of Syria, far from the cities of the eastern Mediterranean, far from the world where many archers had learned their craft. Move to northern Britain, to Hadrian's wall, a hard frontier, a line of stone across hills, wind, rain, and open land. Here, at the edge of the Roman world, Syrian archers appear. Among the most famous were the Hamians, associated with Hama in Syria. Imagine that for a moment. A soldier from the Eastern world, trained in a tradition of archery, standing on a cold frontier in Britain, guarding the edge of an empire ruled from Rome. That image is powerful because it breaks the simple version of Roman history. The Roman army was not only Italian legionaries in matching armor, it was a multinational machine. A Syrian archer could serve the same empire as a legionary from Italy, a cavalryman from Gaul, a recruit from Spain, or an auxiliary from the Balkans. The empire connected them, the army moved them, and the frontier used them. The bow on Hadrian's wall was not a mistake. It was not an embarrassment. It was Rome doing what Rome did best, taking a skill from one region and placing it where the empire needed it. But the question still remains. If archers were useful, why not make every legionary one? The answer is simple. Because a military system is not about making every soldier impressive on paper. It is about making the army work in reality. A legionary carrying a large shield, armor, pilum, sword, tools, rations, and marching gear already carried a heavy burden. His training was built around formation and endurance. A bow required a different kind of body use, a different rhythm, a different place in battle, a different tactical expectation. An archer needed room to draw and shoot. A legionary needed to stay locked with the men around him. An archer's ideal battle often involved distance. A legionary's decisive moment came when distance disappeared. These roles could support each other, but they were not the same role. Rome could have trained some legionaries in archery. In later military writing, we do see recommendations for archery training. But that does not mean the classic Roman legion was built around bows. The normal logic was different. Specialists handled specialist work. The legionary remained the heavy infantry corps. The archer supported, disrupted, protected, and pressured. And together, they formed something more dangerous than either one alone. Centuries after Caesar, The Roman military writer Vegetius looked back on the old army and its training. He wrote, in the late Roman world, when the empire had changed, the old military system had been transformed by pressure, crisis, cavalry warfare, frontier threats, and long experience. Vegetius was not describing the army of Caesar exactly, and he should not be treated as if every recommendation proves normal practice in every Roman century, but he is still important, because he shows that Roman military thought did not treat archery as useless. Vegetius recommended that a portion of the youngest and strongest soldiers be trained with bows and arrows. He emphasized practice, how to hold the bow, how to draw with strength, how to aim, how to shoot on foot or on horseback. And he was clear about one thing: good archers required training, not casual training, not occasional practice, but daily discipline. This matters because it destroys the lazy version of the myth. The Romans were not too foolish to understand the bow. They understood that archery had value. They also understood that skill did not appear overnight. A bow in the hands of an untrained man is only a tool. A bow in the hands of a trained archer is a battlefield weapon. Rome knew the difference. So why do we not remember the archers? Because history often remembers the men at the center of the image. The legionary stands in front. The archer stands behind. The legionary becomes the symbol. The archer becomes support. The legionary appears on posters, statues, games, and thumbnails. The archer disappears into the background. But background does not mean unimportant. A battle is not won only by the man who lands the final blow. It is shaped by the men who made that final blow possible. The scout who found the crossing, the engineer who built the bridge, the cavalrymen who protected the flank, the slinger who disrupted the enemy's advance, the archer who forced the enemy to raise shields too soon, the commander who understood where each piece belonged. That was Roman warfare. Not one weapon, not one soldier, a system, and inside that system, the bow had a place. The Roman attitude toward archers was not rejection. It was hierarchy. The legionary was the center. The auxiliary was the extension. The archer was valuable, but not usually the face of Roman courage. In Roman culture, especially during the Republic, close combat carried prestige. Standing in the line mattered. Facing danger at short distance mattered. The image of the brave Roman soldier was not a man shooting from far away. It was a man holding formation while the enemy came close. But armies cannot survive on cultural ideals alone. The battlefield punishes pride, and Rome, for all its arrogance, was often practical enough to learn. When it needed archers, it used archers. When it needed slingers, it used slingers. When it needed cavalry, it recruited cavalry. When it needed Eastern specialists, it moved Eastern specialists. When it needed to defend a cold wall in Britain, it could place Syrian archers there. That is not refusal. That is imperial logistics. That is adaptation. That is the Roman machine working exactly as it was designed to work. So let us separate the myth from the truth. The myth says Rome refused to use archers. That is false. The truth is, Rome used archers. But the classic legionary was not primarily an archer. The myth says the Roman army was only shields and swords. That is false. The truth is, the Roman army included heavy infantry, cavalry, light troops, slingers, engineers, artillery crews, auxiliaries, and archers. The myth says the bow was useless to Rome. That is false. The truth is, Rome used the bow when it served Roman strategy. The myth says archers were un-Roman. The truth is more complicated. Archery may not have been the proudest symbol of the Roman legionary tradition, but archers became part of the Roman military system. And that system did not care only about symbols. It cared about victory. Rome did not refuse archers. Rome refused to make the archer the center of its identity. That is the real distinction. There is something almost tragic about these forgotten soldiers. The legionary became immortal. His image survived. His shield became famous. His armor became iconic. His formations became legendary. But the auxiliary archer often remained nameless. A man from Crete, a man from Syria, a man from Numidia, a man from a province far from Rome. He fought in Rome's wars. He defended Rome's allies. He marched under Roman command. He stood on frontiers he may never have imagined as a child. And yet, when people remember the Roman army, they often forget him. But the empire did not forget him while it needed him. It gave him a place. It gave him a function. It placed him behind the shield wall, on the flank, on the walls, at the river crossing, or at the edge of the empire. He may not have been the face of Rome, but he was part of the reason Rome could fight in so many different places, against so many different enemies, for so many centuries. So, is it true that the Roman army refused to use archers? No, it is a myth. But like many myths, it grows from a partial truth. The Roman legionary was not usually an archer. The classic Roman legion was centered on heavy infantry. Its image was built around shield, pilum, sword, discipline, and close combat. That part is true. But the army around the legion was much wider, more flexible, more diverse, more practical. Rome used archers in Caesar's campaigns. Rome organized Sagittarii in the empire. Rome stationed Syrian archers on distant frontiers. Rome understood that bows could protect, disrupt, pressure, and control. Rome did not reject the bow. It placed the bow inside a larger machine. And maybe that is the most Roman answer possible. Rome did not need the archer to replace the legionary. Rome needed the archer to help the legionary reach the moment where Rome was strongest. The moment when distance vanished. The moment when the enemy line weakened, the moment when the shield wall moved forward and the machine closed in. The next time you imagine the Roman army, do not stop at the shield wall. Look behind it. Look to the flanks. Look at the men guarding the bridge. Look at the troops standing on the wall. Look at the archer from Syria under a gray British sky. Look at the Cretan bowmen in Caesar's campaign. Look at the slinger from the Balearic Islands. Look at the soldiers' history pushed into the background because they were not the symbol. They were not the statue. They were not the icon. But they were there. And without them, Rome would have been less flexible, less dangerous, and less capable of fighting across the world it tried to rule. The Roman army was not powerful because it used only one weapon. It was powerful because it knew how to combine many. The shield held, the pilum broke, the sword finished, the cavalry pursued, the engineers built, the slingers harassed, and the archers darkened the sky before the enemy ever reached the line. That is the truth behind the myth. Rome did not refuse archers. Rome used them, just not in the way people expect. If this changed the way you see the Roman army, leave a like and subscribe to Bellum Insights. Here, we uncover the real stories behind ancient wars, forgotten battles, empires, weapons, betrayals, and the military myths people still believe today. And tell us in the comments, which Roman myth should we investigate next? Did Roman soldiers really fight in perfect formations all the time? Was the testudo as powerful as movies make it seem? Or did Rome have another hidden weakness behind its legendary discipline? Watch the next video on the screen. Because in history, the most famous image is rarely the full truth.